Hello and peace to you. Thank you for joining me today. May the Lord's presence be with you as we begin. I once knew someone who never said no. He was kind to everyone, gave to everyone, helped everyone, until one day he had nothing left. Not his energy, not his joy, not even his identity, because kindness without boundaries will strip you bare. We are taught from our earliest days to be nice, to share, to keep the peace, to keep the smile, to never make waves. And kindness is beautiful. It is a fruit we should cherish. But there is a kind of kindness that looks like a soft blanket and hides a chain beneath it, a kindness that is not rooted in strength but in fear, not in love but in the dread of being disliked. It doesn't speak truth. It whispers permission. It doesn't set you free. It hands out keys to everyone else so they can enter your soul whenever they please. There is a story told of a lamp that burned all night in a window, a lamp whose flame was tended by a careful hand. People walking the road saw that glow and felt safe. But then passers-by began to ask the keeper for a little oil. "Just a little, friend, my path is dark." And the keeper, with a heart of gold, said yes, and yes, and yes again. The flame grew smaller, the glass darkened with soot, the light flickered. And one night, when the storm came and the road cried out for a beacon, that lamp sputtered and died. The keeper had been kind to everyone, and because of that, he had light for no one. Do you see it? Kindness divorced from wisdom is not kindness at all. It's a slow surrender of the very gift you've been entrusted to keep burning. Look at the rhythm of the one we call Lord. There were moments when crowds pressed in, needs piled like waves, voices crying, "Come here, come there, do this, heal that." And what did he do? He withdrew to the mountain to pray. He stepped into the boat and crossed the waters. He rose early and went to a solitary place. Was that unkind? Number it was the fierce kindness of stewardship. Stewardship of his calling, of his inner life, of the mission placed upon him. The river that waters many fields keeps its banks, or it becomes a swamp. And a swamp, though full, is stagnant, breeding mosquitoes instead of bread for the thirsty ground. There are people whose definition of you is the person who will always say yes. They don't mean harm, perhaps, but they have learned the map to your soul. Press this button, speak this need, present this urgency, and you will move. And when you move every time, not out of conviction but compulsion, you lose the ability to hear the deeper call. You begin to carry 1,000 small obligations that were never yours to carry. You begin to apologize for the sun setting and for the tides turning and for the fact that your heart needs quiet. You begin to despise your own limits as if they were sins. Friend, limits are not sins. They are the shoreline that gives the ocean its majesty. What if kindness begins not at your borders but at your center? What if the first act of kindness is to guard the life within you so that it may truly bless the world? The oil of the lamp, the oil of the wise virgins, was not selfishly hoarded. It was faithfully stewarded. "Go buy for yourselves," they told the unprepared. Was that cruel? Or was it a truth spoken to prevent the collapse of all light? You cannot give a flame you have let die. You cannot pour from a cup you refuse to keep filled. How many apologies have you uttered for doing the very thing that would keep you alive? Resting, saying no, stepping away to pray, admitting you are not the answer to all problems. There is a kindness that coddles dysfunction, and a kindness that calls forth destiny. One strokes the fever and keeps the patient in bed. The other brings the bitter medicine that heals. One says, "I'll carry you forever," and so the legs never learn to walk. The other says, "I love you too much to keep you small," and so the child rises, wobbly but free. Which is love? Which is truth? Which does heaven call kindness? The hardest part is that the counterfeit kindness will earn you praise. What a nice person. Always there. While the true kindness will sometimes earn you frowns. Who do you think you are? You've changed. You said no. But friend, if their affection depends on your self-erasure, what they loved was not you. It was their access. Listen to the quiet voice inside that says, "Guard this hour. Close this door. Do not go to that room where your peace is siphoned. Do not answer that message at midnight that always becomes a snare." The world will not collapse if you stop being the emergency department for every avoidable crisis. And if some relationships tremble when you stop rescuing, let them tremble. That shaking is not your doom, it is the doorway to a healthier order. For some, your perpetual yes has been a life jacket they wore instead of learning to swim. You were afraid they would drown if you let go. But how many years will you keep them in shallow waters because you fear the deep? And how many years will you refuse your own ocean because you fear their reaction to your leaving the shore? I remember the man who did not know how to refuse. He would take the late calls, the last-minute rides, the tasks no one else wanted. At first it looked like virtue, but slowly his eyes dimmed, his laughter thinned. He began to walk like someone who had lent his spine to other people's crises. One day he told me, "I don't know who I am when no one is asking me for something." That is the sentence you reach at the end of boundless kindness, a namelessness. And the way back is not to become hard or cruel. It is to choose a different kind of kindness, one that includes you. Let your yes be true and bright, not tired and gray. Let your no be clear and clean, not angry and overdue. A late no is a yes that tried to save face and ended by wounding hearts. Speak early. Speak honestly. Speak as a steward of a life that belongs to God. If the river keeps its banks, it will flow strong and clear, and many will drink. If the walls of the vineyard hold, the grapes will ripen, and many will be fed. If the shepherd rests, the flock will be led with strength, not with the shaky hand of exhaustion pretending to be love. Not everyone who draws near your light comes to be warmed. Some come to feed upon it. Not everyone who praises your kindness honors your soul. There are takers who test your edges, not with malice sometimes, but with hunger. And if you have none, they will walk farther in. You must become a house with doors that open and close, not a roofless ruin where the rain and thieves pass freely. The poet said, "Good fences make good neighbors." But I tell you, good boundaries make true love possible. Love without edges becomes a fog in which all shapes blur. You cannot tell where one ends and another begins. And soon there is no responsibility, no accountability, only a haze of favors and fatigue. There are seasons when compassion means carrying someone. There are also seasons when compassion means stepping aside so they can learn to carry themselves. Recall the instruction to the disciples. If a town will not receive you, shake the dust from your feet. This is not bitterness. It is clarity. It is the freedom to walk on when your presence is neither wanted nor heeded. Some of you have camped for years at the gate of hearts that do not open, offering more and more kindness like coins at a locked door, hoping the hinge will melt. The hinge will not melt. The door belongs to another will, and even God, who knocks with infinite patience, does not break the door to force himself in. If heaven respects the boundary of the human heart, why would you violate the boundaries of your own? There is a holy economy to your energy. Think of your heart as a vineyard. You have rows to tend, weeds to pull, grapes to prune. If every passerby is handed a basket of fruit before the vine is ripe, what harvest will there be? If you cut every cluster for anyone who asks, without discernment, what wine will be left for the feast you were born to host? There is a calling upon you, perhaps to build, to write, to teach, to raise children, to start a work, to heal, to pray. That calling requires oil, time, silence, study, rest, courage. If your kindness spills into every demand, your calling will starve. And then the world loses twice, The one who asked of you loses a true whole you, and the mission you were meant to fulfill never arrives. Hear me. This is not a license to become cold. It is an invitation to become clear. The world has enough indifference. What it lacks is love with a spine, love that tells the truth even when the truth makes dinner awkward. Love that says, I cannot do that for you, and then says, but I will pray with you for strength to do it yourself. Love that brings a cup of water and also brings a mirror. Love that sits with the grieving in silence and also says to the manipulative, no more. Love that knows the difference. The no you speak in courage will be misunderstood by some. They will call it selfish. They will call it pride. But ask yourself, who benefits from your exhaustion? Who benefits when you forsake your own soul? Only chaos, only stagnation, only those patterns that fear your transformation. The very voices that accuse you for setting boundaries will often be the same voices that grow quieter, calmer, even healthier when your boundaries stand. Because structure heals more than sentiment. A life with walls and gates, with hours for prayer and hours for labor, with seasons for yes and seasons for no. This is a life that invites respect, even from those who once resisted it. Consider how the teacher handled the crowd in one moment and the one soul in another. He was not available in the way our phones are available, buzzing, blinking, reachable at all hours. He was present, and presence is different from availability. Availability is a door that never locks. Presence is a table set at the right time with the right bread. Availability answers every knock. Presence discerns which knock to answer now, which to answer later, and which to leave unanswered because it does not come from truth. Learn the difference, and you will feel the weight lift from your chest. There will be a test. After you begin to live this way, invitations will come that flatter your ego and drain your soul. Emergencies will arise that are not yours, presented with urgency that is borrowed. Old patterns will knock in new costumes. Someone will say, only you can help, and a small part inside you will glow with the old intoxication of being needed. Smile at that part. Bless it. But don't let it drive. Ask the questions. Is this mine? Is this now? Is this what I am called to do? Or is it what I am afraid to refuse? If the answer is fear, step back. If the answer is calling, step in. And if you cannot tell, take a night to pray, to rest, to seek counsel. The thing that cannot survive one night of waiting is rarely a thing of God. Some of you are thinking, if I begin to live like this, I will lose people. Perhaps. But you will gain truth. You will gain peace. You will gain the kind of relationships that do not require your constant bleeding to stay alive. You will gain time. Time to become who you were meant to be. Time to serve from fullness rather than from fumes. Time to love with strength rather than to appease with fear. And paradoxically, your kindness will grow warmer, not colder. When you give from a whole heart, your smile is yours, your gift is yours, and the person receiving it can feel the difference. It does not come with the ghost of resentment attached. It does not come with the debt of unspoken expectations. It is free, and free gifts bless the deepest. Imagine your life a sanctuary. There is the outer court, where many may pass. There is the inner court, where fewer may come. And there is the holy place, where God meets you, where your identity is forged, where your flame is trimmed, where you are named and known. Not everyone is called into every court. Some will be content to meet you in the outer space of polite kindness. A few will be invited closer. And the holy place, that is not for others to occupy. It is the well from which you draw. Guard it. If you let that space be trampled by constant demands, you will wake one day and realize the lamp is out and the song is gone. Close the door, tend the flame, then open and pour and bless and close again. Rhythm, order, life. There is also the truth that not everyone deserves your energy. I do not mean that some people are worthless. No soul is worthless. I mean that your energy is seed, and seed must be sown in soil, not scattered on asphalt. You have met the conversations that never end because they never begin in honesty. You have met the problems that return every week wrapped in new paper, but hiding the same refusal to change. You have met the flattery that follows every request like a shadow. These are not fields, they are sinkholes. Pouring yourself into them does not irrigate a garden, it waters a pit. How do you know the difference between a field and a pit? A field receives and produces. A pit receives and demands. When you speak truth to a field, it may struggle, but it leans toward the light. When you speak truth to a pit, it argues with the sun. A field shows small sprouts of change, apologies that become actions, intentions that become routines, promises that become patterns. A pit offers tears that reset the cycle, apologies that purchase another month of your labor, compliments that barga, in for another gallon of your oil. Love the pit by refusing to be swallowed. Pray for it. Pass by it. Throw a rope if you must, but do not climb down. For if you live in the pit to prove your kindness, both you and the rope will disappear. Even the Lord did not entrust himself to certain crowds because he knew what was in human hearts. Think of that word, entrust. To whom do you entrust your hours, your best thoughts, your early mornings, your late nights? To whom do you give the marrow of your day? If you entrust it to noise, you will reap emptiness. If you entrust it to flattery, you will reap confusion. If you entrust it to the purpose for which you were born, you will reap a harvest that blesses many, including those who once tried to claim you as their permanent helper. There is no shame in being selective with your yes. Trees are selective with their sap. They do not flood every branch equally. Vines are selective with their pruning. They do not let every tendril run wild. The body is selective with its blood. It rushes to the places that are working, that are injured, that are essential. And it does not apologize to the fingernail for not receiving the same surge as the heart. You are part of a design that understands distribution, priority, stewardship. Align with it. You will feel guilt the first times you practice this. Guilt is the echo of old agreements, promises you never made out loud but signed in fear. I will always be there. I will never disappoint. I will absorb your chaos. I will make sure you never feel the pain of your own choices. Break those contracts gently, firmly, and without malice. Replace them with a new covenant. I will love you. I will tell you the truth. I will help you in ways that do not destroy me or enable your harm. I will be faithful to my calling, to my family, to my health, to my God. And when I cannot help, I will not pretend. Watch how your soul begins to breathe. And then, as you walk this path, learn the sacred art of the loving no. The no that is not a slammed door, but a hand raised with clarity. The no that protects the yes you were born to give. The gardener must say no to 100 shoots if he wants one rose to bloom. The musician must say no to 100 noises if she wants one melody to sing. The saint must say no to distractions if he wants prayer to become a river. Your no is not a rejection of people. It is a confession of purpose. It says, I cannot be everything to everyone, but I can be who I was made to be, and from that place, my kindness will be clean. There will be days you misjudge. You will say yes where you should have said no, and you will feel the familiar drain. Forgive yourself, learn, adjust. There will be days you say no where you might have said yes, and you will wonder if you were too guarded. Bring it to prayer. Ask for wisdom. Kindness grows wiser as it walks. It doesn't descend fully formed. But never again confuse exhaustion with holiness, people-pleasing with love, or boundarylessness with humility. The meek shall inherit the earth, yes, But meekness is not weakness. Meekness is strength under control, a stallion bridled for purpose, not a broken creature wandering at every whistle. If you are tired, if you feel invisible in your own life, if you dread the phone because it might be another request you cannot bear to refuse, hear this like a bell. You are allowed to live as a whole person. You are allowed to be kind and clear. You are allowed to love others and guard your soul. You are allowed to serve and to rest. You are allowed to disappoint expectations that were never yours to fulfill. You are allowed to let your yes and your no be worthy of heaven's echo. And when you do, the lamp in your window will burn bright again. Not a small, frantic flame, but a steady light. A light that guides travelers, a light that comforts the weary, a light that is not swallowed by the first wind because it is tended by a faithful hand. So let us begin today, not to stop kindness, but to stop the counterfeit. To choose the love that tells the truth, the mercy that sets free, the generosity that flows from a well-kept full. Guard the oil, trim the wick, close the door when it is time to close, and open it when it is time to open. In that rhythm, you will find not only your strength, but the truest gift you can offer the world, yourself, whole and luminous, given not out of fear, but out of freedom. He was kind to everyone, gave to everyone, helped everyone, until one day he had nothing left. Not his energy, not his joy, not even his identity, because kindness without boundaries will strip you bare. And that brings us to the sobering truth most of us avoid. Kindness without wisdom is not kindness at all. It is self-destruction dressed in virtue. Think of how the world constantly tells us to be nice, to be agreeable, to say yes. From childhood, many of us were praised for never making trouble, for being the quiet one, the helpful one, the one who sacrifices without question. And on the surface, it seems noble. Who doesn't want to be known as generous, loving, selfless? But beneath the surface, there is a corrosion that takes place. The one who says yes to everyone slowly forgets how to hear the voice of God saying no. Christ himself, who embodied perfect love, never surrendered his mission to the endless demands of people. Crowds pressed in, hands reached out, voices cried for miracles. Yet he would turn away, slip into the wilderness, walk past the needy because he was attuned not to the pressure of man, but to the will of his Father. That was not cruelty. That was clarity. For if he had tried to satisfy everyone, he would have missed the cross, the very purpose of his coming. Imagine it. The salvation of the world would have been compromised, not by hatred, not by apathy, but by a misplaced kindness. Your soul is not infinite in its human strength. You have only so much time, only so much energy, only so much heart to pour out. If you scatter it to every demand, you will find yourself empty at the very moment you are called to be full, and the people who drained you will not be there to refill you. The applause of others cannot restore your strength, and their endless expectations will only grow heavier the more you indulge them. Kindness without discernment creates a cycle where you give and give, but what you are giving is not love. It is pieces of yourself torn away until nothing remains. Do you remember what Jesus said? Do not cast your pearls before swine. That was not a dismissal of people's value, but a revelation of boundaries. Pearls are precious, and when placed before those who cannot recognize them, they are trampled, and the giver is left wounded. In the same way, your time, your love, your counsel, your help, these are pearls. Not everyone has the heart to honor them. Not everyone has the capacity to receive them. To force kindness where it is not respected is not compassion, it is waste. And what happens when kindness turns to waste? Resentment begins to grow. The heart that once gave freely now feels trapped, exploited, unappreciated. And resentment, if left unchecked, poisons even the purest love. Suddenly, you find it hard to give to those who truly need you, those who would honor your sacrifice, because you have been emptied by those who never cared. That is why wisdom and kindness must walk hand in hand. Without wisdom, kindness will burn you out. Without kindness, wisdom will turn you cold. But together, they form the Christ-like love that heals instead of harms. So I ask you, who are you exhausting yourself for? Who have you been saying yes to, out of guilt, out of fear of rejection, out of habit, while deep inside, the Spirit is whispering no? The greatest deception of misplaced kindness is that it looks good. People will praise you for it. They will tell you how selfless you are, how generous, how giving. But the applause of people can never replace the approval of God. And God is not calling you to please everyone. He is calling you to fulfill His assignment for you. Beloved, sometimes the most Christ-like thing you can do is say no. Sometimes the holiest act of love is refusing to enable someone's brokenness, refusing to give your time to distractions that pull you away from your purpose. To deny the wrong demand is to preserve the strength for the right one. To close one door is to keep open the door God Himself has placed before you. And when you finally learn to say no to everyone, you become free to say yes to the one. Consider the subtle chain of cause and effect. You say yes to a request that your spirit quietly resisted. The yes seems small, even noble, but that yes steals the hour in which you were meant to listen, to reflect, to plan, to build. It steals the quiet where clarity is forged. And because you have said yes to them, you have said no to your own stewardship, your rest, your family, your craft, your prayer, your healing. At first you call it sacrifice. After a while you can only call it leakage. A soul that leaks cannot carry the water it was meant to bring to thirsty places. And what leaks out is always the same: presence, peace, conviction, creativity. Not everyone who receives your kindness will honor your core. Some will receive it as oxygen and grow, others will treat it as a right and grow dependent. The difference is not in your gift, but in their posture. A heart that honors will treasure and multiply. A heart that uses will expect and consume. The wise farmer does not pour seed into the mouth of goats. He sows into soil. He watches the conditions, feels the wind, studies the clouds, and discerns the moment. That is not meanness, that is faithfulness. To call every demand a ministry is to confuse chaos with compassion. Ministry begins where purpose meets need. Manipulation begins where guilt meets demand. There is a toxic agreement many carry without knowing it. If I am kind to everyone, everyone will be kind to me. Life breaks this agreement early and often. The taker learns your soft spots. The manipulator learns your calendar. The chronic victim learns your threshold for tears. Each time you bend, the boundary dissolves. Each time the boundary dissolves, respect thins. Each time respect thins, resentment thickens. Kindness without wisdom does not create gratitude, it cultivates entitlement. And entitlement, once fed, never announces that it is full. Look at the patterns of the one who was compassion embodied. He fed 5,000, but he did not turn every hillside into a permanent buffet. He healed many, but he did not open a clinic that stayed until the last person approved of his schedule. He rose before dawn to pray. He climbed mountains to be alone. He sailed across lakes to change scenes. He told a crowd, "No sign will be given," and walked away. This is not the portrait of a cold heart. It is the portrait of a heart on mission. Love in its highest form is not led by pressure but by purpose, and purpose is not rude. It is rooted. When you are rooted, your no becomes as holy as your yes. A garden thrives not only because it receives water, but because it refuses weeds. A vineyard yields not only because it embraces sun, but because it endures pruning. Your life requires both, the generous flow of giving and the courageous edge of refusal. Without pruning, every vine becomes a tangle. Without refusal, every day becomes a tangle. The enemy of your calling rarely arrives in obvious evils. More often he arrives as 100 almost right invitations. Each one on its own looks harmless, even good, but together they become a fog that steals the horizon. Ask yourself sober questions. Who decides your schedule, your convictions, or other people's conveniences? Who writes the script of your day, the voice of the Spirit or the volume of the loudest need? What do you owe to every person who asks? You owe love, honesty, dignity. You do not owe access, unlimited time, the surrender of your focus, or the sacrifice of your peace. Access is a stewardship. Time is a stewardship. Focus is a stewardship. Peace is a stewardship. You guard them not to hoard them, but to invest them where they will bear fruit that lasts. A life without boundaries begins to counterfeit virtues. Overextension masquerades as generosity. People-pleasing masquerades as humility. Avoidance of conflict masquerades as peacemaking. But genuine generosity gives from overflow, not from depletion. Genuine humility tells the truth even if it risks being misunderstood. Genuine peacemaking confronts what destroys peace. It does not wallpaper over fractures with smiles. Blessed are the peacemakers, yes, not the peacekeepers who will trade truth for quiet. There is a moment every giver knows. The request arrives with urgency. You feel the old hook in your chest, that blend of fear and flattery. Only you can help. That sentence has trapped saints for centuries. Let it no longer trap you. You are not the Messiah of anyone's crisis. You are a signpost, a servant, a brother or sister, a witness. The task of saving belongs to the Savior. When you try to be what only God can be, your kindness becomes idolatry dressed as service. Idolatry always demands sacrifices. In this shrine, the sacrifices are your sleep, your joy, your integrity, your presence with the ones you've been truly given to love. Some will say, but isn't it selfish to protect your energy? Hear the accusation and hold it up to truth. A firefighter who staggers into the blaze without oxygen is not brave, he is reckless. A surgeon who refuses to scrub because the patient is desperate is not compassionate. She is dangerous. A mother who never sleeps for the sake of constant availability soon cannot mother. Stewardship is not selfishness. It is the condition for sustained service. It is the guardrail so your vehicle doesn't sail off the cliff of burnout while you're carrying passengers. Notice what happens in relationships when you begin to practice holy boundaries. Those who love you in truth will adjust. They will respect your no, and their esteem for your yes will rise. Those who love their access more than they loved you will protest. They will call your clarity pride, your rest laziness, your discernment judgment. Let the protests pass like weather. If your no is anchored in love and purpose, time will vindicate it. And sometimes your boundary will become the very thing that catalyzes growth in the other person. For what is constantly provided without cost is seldom valued, and what is seldom valued is seldom transformed. There is also the algebra of time you must face. Say yes to an hour you were meant to study, and you say no to futures that hour would have shaped. Say yes to another late-night rescue, and you say no to the early morning in which your prayer would have steadied you. Say yes to everyone, and you will find yourself saying no to the one person who cannot be replaced in your life, your own soul. A neglected soul will still function, just like a neglected engine will still run for a time. But the noise you begin to hear is not a sign of strength. It is a warning. Heed it before smoke becomes flame. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to return responsibility to its rightful owner. Enabling calls it compassion to keep carrying what is not yours. Wisdom calls it love to gently set it down. This does not mean you abandon people in their need. It means you refuse to participate in the cycle that keeps them from growth. Offer counsel, not control. Offer tools, not a permanent lift. Offer prayer, not perpetual rescuing. If a person will not walk toward their healing, your constant carrying will not bring them there. It will only leave you both exhausted beside the road. Let's speak of resentment openly, because it is the shadow of boundaryless kindness. When you are overrun, your heart begins to tally debts. You do not write them, but you feel them. After all I've done. That sentence is the candle of fatigue burning at both ends. You expect others to repay what you never should have lent: your essence, your center, your peace. Resentment is inevitable when you give what you do not have or what you were not assigned to give. The cure is not to stop giving. The cure is to start discerning. Give what is yours to give. Withhold what is not. Do it early, cleanly, without drama, without apology, and watch how gratitude returns to your giving like oxygen returning to a room. There is a quiet practice that will change your life: delayed responses. When a demand comes dressed as an emergency, pause. Say, "Let me pray, let me check, I will get back to you." The thing that cannot survive one night of waiting is rarely a thing from God. Urgency tries to bypass wisdom. It hopes you will react rather than reflect. By delaying, you relocate the decision from the pressure of another's need to the presence of your own purpose. In that space, you can ask the question that keeps you free. Is this mine? Is this mine is not a hard heart's defense. It is a wise heart's discernment. If it is yours, you will feel the deep yes of alignment, even if the task is costly. If it is not, you will feel the drag of guilt, the fog of confusion, the whisper of fear. They won't like me, they'll be disappointed. Let those whispers identify themselves. Not love, not calling, not conviction. Fear. Make decisions from conviction, not from fear. Fear builds prisons with open doors. Conviction builds paths through mountains. You are not required to attend every argument you are invited to. You are not obligated to fix every mood you did not cause. You are not responsible for outcomes that belong to choices you did not make. Your part is to be faithful, to speak the truth in love, to act when called, to refrain when not, to keep your lamp trimmed. A trimmed lamp burns brighter and longer. An untrimmed lamp smokes, sputters, and fills the house with haze. Haze is what many live in: blurry weeks, exhausted months, years that feel like someone else's story. Clarity is what boundaries restore: edges, priorities, a yes that rings instead of mumbles. Do not be surprised if, as clarity grows, your circle shifts. The friendships built on your availability will thin. The friendships built on mutual honor will deepen. The invitations will become fewer but more aligned. The work will become narrower but more potent. The noise will fade. The song will be heard. You will find yourself present where you are rather than scattered in a dozen rooms through the crack in a door. Presence turns small moments into holy ground. Availability multiplies moments and empties them of meaning. Pay attention to your body. It keeps the truest calendar. Tightness in your chest when a certain name appears on your screen. Dread before a recurring meeting. Relief when plans are canceled. These are not quirks. They are data. They are your soul asking for boundaries your mouth is afraid to speak. Honor that intelligence. Form sentences that are simple and clean. I'm not able to do that. That won't work for me. I can't continue this pattern. I need to step back. You owe no essay with your number. Explanations are often invitations for negotiation. Clarity is a closed door with a blessing on both sides. What about generosity? Will boundaries choke it? No, they will purify it. Generosity free from compulsion can be lavish and playful. It can surprise and delight. It can bless without bitterness. When you give from wisdom, you give like a river released from dams of guilt and fear. You are not performing kindness as currency to purchase affection. You are offering kindness as overflow from a life connected to Source. People can feel the difference. A gift given to avoid disapproval creates debt. A gift given from freedom creates joy. Let the phrase, "not everyone deserves your energy," be redeemed from arrogance. It does not mean people are undeserving. It means your energy is sacred. Sacred things are not thrown into the street. Sacred things are handled with intention. You are not hoarding holiness when you say no. You are directing it. And as you direct it, you discover something paradoxical. You actually have more to give. Your yes grows stronger. Your smile grows truer. Your counsel carries weight. Your presence becomes a balm instead of a bandage that peels off in the night. Finally, imagine the day you live this rhythm fully. The demands have not ceased, but their power over you has. Your phone still rings, but your heart no longer leaps in fear. You open your calendar and see white space. Not emptiness, but margin, a sanctuary for spontaneity that serves your purpose. You sit at dinner and are there for it, tasting, listening, laughing. You work at your craft and feel the old fire return, the sense that your life is not a series of favors, but a pilgrimage with a map. When need meets your path, you help with strength. When manipulation waves its flag, you bless and pass by. Those who walk with you learn your edges and thank you for them, because within those edges you are alive, and an alive you is the greatest gift you can offer. So do not stop being kind. Stop being consumed. Do not stop saying yes. Stop saying it where your soul says no. Let love keep its spine. Let mercy keep its mind. Let generosity keep its guard. When you do, you will find what you thought would make you less kind makes you more. What you feared would make you less available makes you more present. What you suspected would make you less spiritual makes you more obedient. And the lamp in your window, tended, guarded, refueled, will shine steady through the night, guiding many home, including, at last, you. And as the lamp in your window begins again to glow steady and true, listen to a truth that many mistake for hardness, but which is, in the deepest sense, an act of mercy. Sometimes a refusal is the most loving thing you can offer. The word no is not a blunt instrument of rejection. It is a surgical tool of preservation. It cuts away what would kill the life in you so that what remains may flourish. We have been taught to equate love with agreement, to confuse compassion with compliance. But love, at its highest, is not the same as accommodating every demand. There are moments when saying no is an act of spiritual courage that protects both the giver and the receiver. Consider a gardener who loves his plants. If a vine reaches into every neighboring bed, choking out seedlings, what does love demand? Does love demand the gardener stand by and watch the garden die? No. Love calls him to prune. The snip of the shears hurts the branch, but the branch survives because the whole vine regains strength. Likewise, the no you speak sometimes prunes a life, not to punish, but to preserve. You refuse to continue enabling a dependency because you see the larger harvest that could be. You say no to a repeated excuse because you know that a consequence might be the turning point that awakens repentance. You refuse to be the shoulder that carries someone through every storm because you believe in training them to carry their own load. There is a discipline to this kind of love. Saying no does not come out of anger or disdain. It comes from a larger tenderness. It is the voice that chooses the long-term good over the immediate relief of another's comfort. Parents do this every day when they withhold a dangerous object from a child, or when they refuse to rescue a son who must learn through consequence. The kind refusal says, "I love you too much to let this habit harden into your future." It is small acts of holy restraint that accumulate into salvation. When you say no rightly, you are not showing contempt for the person before you. You are refusing a pattern that would diminish them and you. There is a biblical cadence to this. Think of the prophet who confronted sin even when it made him unpopular. or of the teacher who refused to be led astray by flattery. Love sometimes requires confrontation. It is loving to challenge what destroys and to bless what builds. The no you speak can be a shield around a person's dignity. If a friend comes to you with a repeating story of destructive choice and you keep bailing them out, paying debts, excusing behavior, answering midnight calls that sabotage their work, you are not rescuing them. You are facilitating a slow erasure of their responsibility. The gift of a difficult consequence may be the only prayer they hear. The no that returns responsibility is sometimes the loudest sermon mercy can deliver. Yet saying no well is an art. It demands clarity, kindness, and a posture of solidarity rather than condemnation. A cruel no is simply rejection. A holy no is a boundary set with love. It looks like this: I cannot do that for you, but I will help you find another way. It looks like, I won't take your call at midnight, but I will meet you on Wednesday to help with a plan. It looks like, I will not bail you out of the same hole again, but I will stand by you while you learn to climb out. This kind of refusal accompanies people through the hard work of consequence with dignity, not with abandonment. It is firm and tender at once. Listen closely. Hesitation in saying no often stems from a fear of loss of approval, loss of belonging, loss of affection. We equate our value with how many people depend on us. We think if we refuse, they will leave. So we keep saying yes long after the voice inside has gone quiet. But what we must realize is this: relationships that depend on your perpetual availability are not relationships. They are transactions. And transactions can never substitute for covenantal love. A covenant loves with limits because it knows the cost of being all things to all people. If you learn to say no with integrity, you will in time discover which relationships are transactional and which ones are true. The sheep that remain will come to know the weight and worth of your yes. The rest will reveal themselves to be ties that bind you in ways that are not life-giving. A practical way to begin practicing the loving no is to cultivate a small pause, a sacred space between the request and your response. When someone entreats you, do not let the first impulse become the rule. Breathe. Pray silently. Ask a clarifying question. Say, let me think about it, or I need to check my calendar, or can I call you back after I pray about this? In that pause, wisdom arrives. Many traps of manipulation lose their power when you refuse to be reactive. The urgency that once made you feel compelled dissipates in the face of patience. And in the pause, you can hear whether the request aligns with your calling or merely plays on your fears. Another part of saying no well is to give a clear alternative when possible. A no without direction can feel like abandonment. A no with a concrete alternative can feel like love. No, I cannot give you money can be loving when followed by, but I will help you connect with resources, or I will help you draw a budget plan, or I will help you rehearse a job interview. This way your no is not a slammed door, but a redirected path. You are not cruel, you are guiding, you are teaching stewardship, not enforcing punishment. There are seasons when you must make a decisive no for the health of the whole. Spiritual leaders know this. There are points in ministry when you must protect the flock by refusing the persistent demands of a few who would turn the tent into a marketplace of entitlement. There are moments in marriage when a spouse must refuse a pattern that corrodes intimacy and safety. There are times in friendships when you must refuse the repeated taking that erodes mutuality. These are not isolated acts of selfishness. They are acts of fidelity to the greater good of the relationship and the mission. The loving no is sacrificial in its long view. It sacrifices temporary comfort for enduring wholeness. Expect resistance, and do not be surprised when it comes from those you have loved most. Tears, accusations, and pleas will greet your boundary sometimes. People do not like change, especially those who have benefited from chaos. Some will plead, "You used to be different." Hold to your clarity. The early grief of someone who loses a free pass is not a verdict on your compassion. It is the sound of a structure rearranging itself. Give space for mourning, but do not let mourning become a lever to reverse what you have discerned is necessary. Be compassionate in your firmness. We must also confront the counterfeit no, the no spoken out of fear, pride, or bitterness. That is not the loving number. A prideful no says, "I won't help because it diminishes me to do so." A fearful no says, "I refuse because I am afraid their need will entangle me." A bitter no says, "I will not help because I am wounded." These no's protect the speaker, rather than protect the soul of the other. The loving no, by contrast, is rooted in a desire for the other's flourishing even when it is costly to you. It may hurt in the short term, but it does not stem from hatred. It stems from a larger, sacrificial love. There is a spiritual discipline you can practice that will attune your heart to say no rightly. Cultivate a life of prayerful consecration. When your days are saturated with silence and communion, you can more easily discern what belongs to you. The soul that is starved of solitude cannot see clearly. The noisy life becomes reactive, and reactive people are always giving incorrectly. The sanctuary of a disciplined prayer life trains you to hear the voice that says yes and the voice that says no. It teaches you to align with a rhythm larger than the demands around you. Teach others to carry their own load. This is an act of pastoral love. When someone asks for help, ask what steps they have taken, what plan they have, what efforts they will make. Do not become the furnace that melts others' responsibility away. In asking questions, you empower them to be participants instead of passengers. Empowerment is a form of tough love that preserves dignity. If someone refuses to participate in their own restoration, your continued rescuing is not tenderness. It is enabling. The loving no invites self-responsibility. It says, "I will stand with you, but you must walk." Consider the economy of your yes. Every yes is a vote for how you will spend your life. If you add up the hours, the energy, the emotional labor, each yes defines your priorities. A stream of small yeses can divert the river from the valley where you were meant to irrigate. By choosing your yeses, you choose your destiny. Saying no to something that distracts you is saying yes to something important. Do not be afraid to weigh requests against the mission laid upon your heart. This is not transactional. It is faithful. There will be moments when the right no is lonely. When you stand at the edge of the cliff and refuse to leap into the flood of demand, you may stand alone for a season. Loneliness is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is the crucible of calling. The desert produces prophets. Quiet for a season produces fruit for a lifetime. Do not mistake solitude for failure. It may be the training ground of your truest service. Practice tenderness with yourself when you begin to say no. You will stumble. You will occasionally say yes out of old reflex. Forgive yourself quickly and learn. The journey from people-pleasing to principled refusal is not instantaneous. It is a series of small corrections. Each correction is a small resurrection. Celebrate them. Each time you refuse something that would have drained you, you reclaim a piece of the life God gave you. Each reclaimed hour is an altar rebuilt. Finally, remember that the most loving no is often accompanied by prayer. When you refuse, do not harden. Maintain a posture of intercession. Pray for the person whose pattern you are addressing. Pray that the consequence you have set will be a doorway to repentance and growth. Love them enough to speak the truth and to stand firm while also lifting them up in relentless prayer. The combination of firm boundary and faithful prayer is powerful. It tends the soil in which change can grow. So learn to say no as a servant of destiny, not as a servant of fear. Say no when your yes would mean betraying your call, your family, your health, or your integrity. Say no with courage, clarity, and compassion. Do it with an aim to awaken responsibility, foster growth, protect the mission, and honor both you and the one before you. In that sacred refusal lives a deeper mercy, a mercy that refuses to enable ruin and instead opens a path to healing. He was kind to everyone, gave to everyone, helped everyone, until the kindness that avoided hard words birthed a different danger, a softness that tolerated falsehood, a mercy that swallowed truth. There is a fragile relationship between kindness and truth, and when kindness refuses the truth, it becomes an accomplice to harm. We have all seen it, a gentle silence kept to avoid awkwardness, a smile offered to smooth over an abrasive word, a soft answer withheld when a firm voice was required. For a season, everything seems calm until the rot begins under the paint. So many of our hurts come not from cruelty, but from the absence of truth spoken in love. When we refuse to correct, to name, to hold accountable, we become partners in a lie that grows and spreads. Truth without love is harsh. Love without truth is hollow. The challenge is to hold both at once, to be tender and bold. There is a kind of kindness that is anesthetic. It dulls the pain temporarily, but leaves the wound uncared for. It comforts while permitting patterns that erode dignity. Think of relationships where destructive habits are treated gently because calling them out feels uncharitable. A friend cheats, a colleague steals, a spouse betrays a covenant, and we smile and say nothing because confrontation seems unkind. In that silence, the betrayed suffer alone, the enabling becomes the norm, and the offender is unreproved, free to continue. Kindness that fears truth becomes a shelter for toxicity. It protects the harmful, but at what cost? The cost is the soul's health, the integrity of the community, the possibility of repentance. There is a moment when mercy requires more than a tissue and a kind word. It requires a mirror. The mirror shows the wound. The wound invites healing, and healing may feel painful. But consider the physician who refuses to name a diagnosis out of sensitivity. His kindness is cruelty if it deprives a person of the remedy they need. Loving correction is an act of faith in the person's capacity to change. It is not a punishment, it is an invitation into wholeness. The person who confronts sin lovingly does so because they believe the other is redeemable, not to shame, but to restore. Without this courage, the circle tightens and poison accumulates. Look at the life of the one who walked among us. He did not flinch from truth. He called hypocrites by name. He rebuked the self-righteous. He exposed what was hidden in darkness. Yet in the same breath, he loved the sinner, touched the untouchable, sat with the outcast. This is the paradox that reveals God's heart. Truth and mercy are not opposites but companions. He said, "Go and sin no more," not in a tone of scorn, but in a voice that presumed the possibility of better. When truth is absent, mercy becomes permissive. When truth is present without gentleness, it becomes a hammer. The soul needs both the seamstress who repairs and the surgeon who removes rot. Toxicity often grows disguised as neediness or pain. Someone who hurts will hurt others unless they are invited to healing. The kind heart sees the hurt and instantly tries to fix it on the surface. A gift, a favor, a word that smooths. But underneath, unless the deeper issue is addressed, the cycle repeats. Where there is addiction, the patient needs intervention more than platitudes. Where there is deception, accountability more than comfort. Where there is abuse, protection more than placation. Our refusal to speak truth permits these patterns to steal life from both parties involved. In the name of kindness, we have sometimes allowed the predator to remain free to harm and the victim to stay trapped in a web of rationalizations that never lead out. Do not confuse confrontation with cruelty. There is a way to correct that is harsh and wounding. There is also a way to correct that is sacrificial and healing. The loving confrontation begins with prayer, compassion, and the humility of assuming you may be wrong. It begins with the posture of an equal, not an accuser. I may be mistaken, but I see this pattern. I care about you too much to let it continue. That tone disarms defensiveness and invites dialogue. But if you avoid the necessary word in the name of keeping the peace you preserve is only the peace of a pond full of algae. Beautiful at first glance, deadly beneath. Truth spoken with grace releases people from cycles of deception. Silence in the face of harm keeps them prisoner. There are communities that die because people will not speak. They choose harmony over holiness, civility over courage. They avoid the hard conversations, and therefore the rot becomes structural. You can see it in families where secrets are layered like wallpaper, in workplaces where ethical compromises are whispered, in churches where offenses are swept under rugs because we don't air our laundry. In such places, kindness is corrupted. It becomes a cultural anesthetic that keeps people numb so the dysfunction can continue. To love such a community is to risk the unpopularity of truth. True leaders are not the ones who smooth everything over. They are the ones who name the sickness and call for healing. There is a specific cruelty in never disciplining. A child whose misbehavior is always excused learns not humility, but entitlement. A spouse who is never confronted for betrayal learns not repentance, but repeated deceit. An employee who steals hours or money and is never held accountable will feel emboldened rather than chastened. The absence of correction is not mercy, it is neglect. It allows the offender to remain in the shape of their sin. We must see that consequences can be the mercy that wakes a life. To remove consequences in the name of comfort is to rob a person of the shock that could begin their return. The mechanics of speaking truth in love require both courage and tenderness. First, the heart must be examined. Is this correction coming from a place of service or superiority? If it is from bitterness, it will injure. If from compassion, it will heal. Second, the timing must be considered. A correction offered in the middle of public humiliation will not restore dignity. A private word with a humble tone may open ears. Third, the content must be precise. Vague accusations breed defensiveness. Specific observations invite responsibility. You always is a battering ram. I noticed when X happened, I felt Y is a window. Fourth, offer a path forward. Repentance without restoration leaves the heart exposed. Say, I will help you, or here are steps to change, or let us seek counsel together. The confrontational word must come framed by a hand that will hold the person afterward. There is also the peril of a false peace that confuses silence with patience. Patience is not indefinite tolerance of wrongdoing. It is the steady endurance toward redemption. If a parent patiently corrects a child, they do not permit the child to continue the same sin. They consistently restore the boundary. A leader who waits for maturity does not avoid confrontation. They nurture growth and require accountability. Patience helps us measure whether a person is moving toward the light or simply circling the same dark place. The person who refuses to change despite patient correction reveals whether their heart is turned toward healing or toward comfort in their dysfunction. We must be willing to risk relationships for the sake of truth. That is a bitter cup, but often necessary. People who love their access more than they love growth will resist. They will castigate the one who dares to speak. Why do you have to make this awkward? And in their complaint, they reveal the very rot that needed naming. Standing for truth may cause temporary fracture, but in many cases it prevents a deeper, more permanent rupture. A relationship that can only exist in the absence of truth is not sustainable. It is built on mutual denial. The courageous heart chooses the hard conversation to preserve the possibility of real reconciliation in the long run. There is also wisdom in selection. Not every situation requires the same response. Some offenses are small and can be gently pointed out and quickly adjusted. Other situations are systemic and require collective action. Discipline, removal of leadership, or structural change. Call for help when the wound is beyond your capacity. Bring elders, counselors, or trusted witnesses into the process when the matter is severe. Do not pretend a personal word can fix institutional rot. The body needs the whole church, the whole community, to act when evil has taken root. Listen to the language you use. Words like toxic, abusive, narcissistic have meaning and power. Do not throw them casually. Be precise. Name behaviors, lying, manipulation, betrayal, addiction, and describe their impacts. This clarity protects you from overreaction and prepares the ground for appropriate responses. When behaviors are named, they can be addressed. When they are softened by vague descriptions, they can hide and fester. People deserve honesty. They deserve the chance to face the truth of their actions. There is a spiritual dimension to this courage. The Holy Spirit often speaks truth into situations through those willing to risk rejection. When your heart is moved to name something, do not assume it is your anxiety or your opinion alone. Pray, seek counsel, fast if necessary, and then go in humility. The Spirit empowers truth-telling that is seasoned with grace. He gives words at the right moment. He also prepares hearts. Do not act in spiritual arrogance thinking you are the only one who sees. Involve others and let their presence be a witness that the correction is not personal vendetta but communal care. Toxic people can be charismatic. Some of the most destructive behaviors wear holy coats or clever speech. Don't be surprised if the person you must confront has supporters, gifts, or talents that cloud the issue. Popularity does not negate harm. The seduction of charisma can blind communities to truth. That is why structures of accountability are crucial. No one should be beyond correction. No one should be insulated by prestige. When we allow fame, title, or eloquence to create immunity from truth, we create altars of abuse. True kindness calls forth courage to speak even to the powerful. And yet remember the posture. The aim is restoration, not ruin. The one who speaks must do so out of a posture of reconciliation. Assume the best within reason, but name the wrong. Offer the path back. For every corrective word, accompany it with the offer of help, counseling, restitution, a rehabilitation plan, prayer, mentorship. If the person responds with genuine regret, create a path for restoration. Do not cast them out for life. Mercy rejoices with truth when it sees repentance. The courageous correction followed by loving restoration is the pattern of healing. Finally, practice this in the small things so you will be ready for the large. If you never speak into the petty annoyances, you will lack the muscle for the real issues. Begin with honest conversations about simple patterns. A friend's habit that crosses a boundary, a co-worker's consistent tardiness that burdens the team, a neighbor's thoughtless noise. Learn to speak clearly, then escalate in proportion when required. The habit of truth builds a culture where toxicity cannot easily take root. Small corrections preserve the whole. When kindness and truth dance together, the music is healing. You will be feared by those who profit from deception, loved by those who are committed to growth, and respected by those who value a rare integrity. Your kindness will no longer be confusing, it will be a compass. People will come to know that when you speak, you do so to restore, not to shame. They will learn that being loved by you means being seen honestly and being offered a path to wholeness. That is the mercy the world needs. Not soft platitudes that maintain the status quo, but truth tenderly applied that liberates and rebuilds. He was kind to everyone, gave to everyone, helped everyone. And yet now, after the pruning and the hard yeses and the loving refusals, something must be said about what remains and where we go from here. There is a harvest to gather when kindness is married to wisdom. There is a peace that takes root in a life that has learned the discipline of holy boundaries. The last thing you need is another rule book. What you need is a rhythm. a way of being that preserves the flame and offers it to the world with purity and power. Listen, when you stop being kind to everyone in the sense of being indiscriminately available, you do not become mean, you become whole. The aliveness that comes from wholeness is the antidote to the fog of people-pleasing. It is not a sudden transformation. It is a steady reclaiming. You will wake to mornings that do not feel like debt collection. You will begin to find your yeses luminous again, not tired and gray. You will learn that the deepest kindness is the one that arrives from abundance, not from depletion. The person who serves from fullness transforms the lives around them because their offering is not the dregs of a day, but the best of a consecrated life. Think of the practical life you now inhabit. Your calendar becomes a sacred ledger. Each entry is chosen with intention. Meetings are not automatic. They are invitations you vet. Calls do not wring your sleep away because your night is no longer a free-for-all. The margins you reclaim are not empty spaces to be filled with guilt. They are altars to creativity and rest. You will find time to read again, to pray again, to think deeply, and to listen to the small voice that once spoke but was drowned by the avalanche of other people's demands. In these margins, your calling regains its shape. Children who have wanted your presence will get it in a way that is not distracted. Work you are called to perform will be done with excellence rather than with the tremor of hurry. Relationships will breathe. And as your life becomes a life tended rather than scattered, you will notice a strange effect. Your kindness will begin to matter more. The world is full of cheap kindness, the kind that costs nothing and therefore values nothing. What people remember are the costly kinds of love. The ones that require sacrifice, yes, but sacrifice that is chosen from a place of abundance rather than from scarcity's compulsion. When you say yes after sober consideration, your yes carries weight. When you offer help that has been prayed over and discerned, it carries an authority of love that disarms cynicism. Those who have been defended by your boundary will come to respect it. Those who were once entitled will either repent or walk away, and sometimes the walking away is the mercy both of you needed. There must be a moral seriousness to this practice. We are not advocating niceness in cold forms, nor are we encouraging a selfish fortress. No, the call is to noble kindliness, the kind that marries mercy to maturity. Let your generosity be generous because it is free, not because it is coerced. Let your compassion be fierce, not faint. Let your love be costly, not convenient. There is a dignity in refusing to be consumed by demand because dignity is the soil in which real affection grows. When you refuse to be used, you do it not to win a battle, but to reclaim the capacity to love without bitterness. If you are a leader, hear this as a pastoral plea. Tend the souls entrusted to you by modeling wise boundaries. Teach them how to steward time, how to say no without shame, how to practice the hard mercy of correction. Structure your community so that no single person becomes a 24/7 resource for everyone else. Build teams, delegate responsibility, train leaders, and create systems of accountability. When you institutionalize care, you prevent the burnout of saints and the tyrannies of entitlement. Your leadership will be healthier for it, your community will be safer for it, and the work you do together will outlast the heroics of one exhausted person. And if you are a parent, imagine the legacy you leave by letting children see a life of limits held in love. They learn from your boundaries. They learn to carry their responsibilities because they watched you refuse to carry everything for them. They learn to respect themselves because they saw you protect yourself. They learn to give because they experienced giving as something life-giving, not life-consuming. Children inherit rhythms more than rules, and the rhythm of a household that says yes to the life-giving and no to the draining is a soundtrack of health. If you are someone trapped in a cycle of rescue, begin to rehearse different sentences. Practice the simple, clear lines. I can't do that. I can help you find someone who can. I can't take that call at midnight, but I will meet you for coffee. I am not able to cover this habit anymore. I will support you in getting help. The grammar of your life changes as your language does. The world will attempt to negotiate with you. It will bargain, flatter, guilt-trip. Stand firm in your grammar and do it with the small voice of a person who has practiced this art. Let your words be seasoned with prayer, your posture with compassion, your follow-through with help. And in the practice of holy boundaries, remember to name the good that arises. Renewed joy, restored creativity, deeper intimacy, clearer calling. These are not byproducts of being selfish. They are fruits of stewardship. When your life reorients toward its true work, you become a beacon. People will come not to take, but to receive something real. Your ministry will be sanctified not by volume but by impact. The songs you sing will ring with authenticity because they are not sung from an empty throat. There is an inner transformation that accompanies the outer changes. You will reassemble your identity in truer terms. No longer will you be defined by how much you can do for others. You will be defined by whose you are and what God has placed inside you to cultivate. That is a lightness of being. It is the return of a self that had been scattered like seeds to the wind. You will stand in the center of your life with a steady heart, and from that steadiness, your compassion will spread like sun, warming and encouraging and growing whatever it touches. I must say plainly, the road will not be without opposition. There will be critics who call your new discipline selfish. There will be those who test your edge. There will be moments of loneliness, moments when you question whether you have become hard. In those hours, return to the simple test. Are you living from abundance or from compulsion? Are your boundaries protecting your call or hiding your fear? Are you praying for those you refuse to carry, or are you exulting in their absence? Let prayer be the compass. Let humility be the guard. Let repentance be ready if you slip back into either encrusted people-pleasing or proud coldness. And here is the final invitation. Live the mercy that knows how to say no, and the courage that knows how to say yes. Live the tenderness that will confront, and the toughness that will sustain. Live the life that honors both the other and yourself. Let your lips speak truth. Let your hands give freely. Let your heart be guarded and generous all at once. You are not called to be everything to everyone, but you are called to be everything you were made to be for those God has placed in your path. That is the highest form of kindness. So keep your lamp trimmed, tend your inner sanctuary, choose your yeses like vows and your nos like prayers for protection. Build margins that are not empty but holy, and in those margins, cultivate the music of a life poured out in wisdom. Live so that when someone says your name, they think not of how exhausted you were, but of how presence-filled and powerful your love has been. Live so that your kindness is remembered not as a chain, but as a gift, chosen, honest, and life-giving. Now, before we part, let us bow together in a brief moment of prayer. Lord, grant us the grace to love with wisdom. Teach us to hold both mercy and truth, to protect the sacred offerings of our time and soul, and to give ourselves away in ways that bear lasting fruit. Strengthen us when we are tempted to be everything to everyone, and guide us to be faithful to the call you have placed upon each life. Let our yes be worthy and our no be kind, that through our lives your light may shine steady and true. Amen. Go now with peace. May the rhythm of wise kindness shape your days, and may the light you keep in your window guide many safely home.